Lorna M. Johnson Global Enterprises are rooted in equality and justice. We are committed to exploring innovative, non-traditional modalities and approaches to positively shift cultural norms relating to bias, hate, and disparities. Thank you for joining us today as we discuss the fierce urgency of this moment, a great moment of healing communications between friends and uniting us within race, culture, faith, media, and politics. We must be the change we seek. In the spirit of my hero and friend, the late great John Lewis, aka the soul of the nation, we have work to do towards that more perfect union and a better us. Get into good trouble, he would tell us, by following the compass of love for one another. Open our hearts and inspire the best in each of us, eliminating the virus of bigotry and confusion. Responding to the call of our moral compass for a more perfect union, I ask each and every one of you to join me in uniting your world, my world, our world, by sharing your uniting ideas at Live with Lorna. The future is in your hands. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the globe. Welcome to the Lorna M. Johnson Global Enterprises Virtual Town Hall. You know what to do. Share with family and friends and let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you for tuning in to Live with Lorna. Happy Financial Literacy Month. Let's talk money. Let's talk about what financial literacy means to you and the impact on the U.S. economy as a whole. Today, we will focus on the role of women and minorities, or the lack thereof, to the U.S. economy and the barriers faced simply because of their sex and or the pigmentation of their skin. Female and minority access to capital and its far-reaching implications are considered by some to be the most consequential yet underreported topics of our time. The underutilization of creativity and talents of more than 50% of the population has a significant and far-reaching impact on the output to our nation. This results in economic opportunity losses ranging from unemployment, mass incarceration, the gender pay gap, gentrification, and civil rights. Does any of this affect you or someone you know? If so, stay tuned and listen, because there is something in here for you. Let's explore these gaps and find the money trail and its impact on your life today. Consider this. Female and minority asset management firms are gatekeepers to a measly 1.3% of $69.1 trillion in asset under management. I said yes, 1.3% of $69.1 trillion in asset under management that are spread across mutual funds, hedge funds, private equity, and other asset classes. This means women and people of color are getting the crumbs compared to white male firms, because the establishment continues to push us out of this economic gravy train, even though we have proven that success is in our DNA. Let's share some history with you. You see, women throughout history have been denied the right to participate in vital economic activities because men believe we are inferior and that we lack the necessary business acumen. Sure. Time and time again, we have proven them wrong, because when allowed to participate, everything gets better. Creativity and the economic output of America as a whole increases exponentially. Just a few decades ago, Women were not allowed to work in factories or in high offices. But when wars took men away, women had to keep this country going. To keep democracy alive, women labored day and night, producing the finest machines ever built in support of the American warfighter for a democratic world. Rejected in the beginning, but when given the opportunity, they rose to the task and surpassed expectation in every sense of the word. Without women stepping up to build the tanks, airplanes, and shells that defended democracy, America as a nation would have been pummeled into submission, and the cause of democracy would have been lost forever. Yes, once again in 2020, when our democracy was yet again threatened and was on the downward spiral, it was women, and particularly women of color, who stood up to the racist ideologues and said, enough. Today, as our democracy is held together by a string, only women and people of color, I believe, as Sojourner Truth would say, can turn it right side up again.
All these women's hair together ought to be able to get it back and turn it right side up again.
Even with history books sharing the stories, we have failed to learn, and the system continues to keep women and people of color as marginalized afterthoughts. Still denied work, but this time in the sense of access to capital, as the gatekeepers of capital erroneously believe, like their ancestors of days gone by, that men, white men, are better suited for the task. As America faces incredible challenges from China to Russia in the fields of AI and robotics and computer science, American women account for the majority of STEM graduates in this country who can stand up to the challenge. Is this being rewarded? No. Instead, women are denied the opportunity to express their genius and move this nation forward because we don't have the access to the capital to make it happen. We're a nation competing with one hand tied behind our back. Imagine what we could do if we could use both hands. Today's women are the hidden hand. Growth comes into any system when we add diversity, something inspiring to the equation. And we're denying ourselves the right to experience this growth. Why? Studies have shown time and time again that diversity increases output to our economy in trillions of dollars versus the old white male homogeneous group. It is the responsibility and duty of fund managers to invest in the best and the brightest, not focus on gender or color. Yet, it's not done. How can we influence the flow of capital to match our diversity and our abilities? Where are the women and people of color gatekeepers? It is time for us as a nation to have an honest conversation and do the right thing. What is right for you and me is right for our country and our democracy. Well, it's Financial Literacy Month. Today, I have asked a few of my friends and business partners to join me on this panel. They are remarkable individuals who intuitively understands the implication of access to capital, or the lack thereof. They have created businesses and accessed billions of dollars in capital. To start us off today, let's welcome Byron Wilson. Byron Wilson coming to us from London, England, a partner at the mid-cap private equity firm, Manhattan Atlantic Capital, and an assistant professor in finance and economics. Byron created a legislative proposal called the American Asset Allocation Act, looking at solutions to rid biases in the distribution of funds from primary and secondary allocators. Next, our partners, Dr. Oksana Malisheva and Joe Merrill from Sputnik ATX, a venture capital group that understands the power of diversity and its impact on the bottom line and the broader economy. Dr. Oksana is a trained physicist holding a PhD from the University of Pennsylvania, and prior to Sputnik, was part of the strategic teams of McKinsey and Motorola. Joe Merrill. Joe is a former US diplomat and partner in Sputnik ATX and the Leiden Group of venture funds based in Austin, Texas. And next is Asai Ifiani, my co-founder and CEO of CribMD, a venture-backed startup providing subscription-based telemedicine and doctor's house calls on demand in Nigeria, where primary care is in short supply. A Harvard MBA and MIT graduate. Welcome to Live with Lorna, everyone. And now that I have my dream financial team here with me, let's talk money. Okay, to start, we're gonna go with Byron. Byron, as an educator and private equity investor, we've had several conversations about disparities in allocation of capitals from gatekeeper. Crunchbase documented Black founders have received only 1% of venture capital funding. And women, they didn't fare so well either. They only got 2.8%. And even though they are the majority of the STEM graduates, this clearly highlights racial and gender disparities in asset allocation. Tell us a little bit about, in a nutshell, a bit about the AAA Act and how you think this could minimize these disparities.
Lorna, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here with this distinguished panel. The AAA Act, or the American Asset Allocator Act, basically tries to realign the $70 trillion in assets under management spread across fixed income, mutual funds, real estate, and private equity more proportionately. Because right now, women and people of color in the United States are the gatekeepers to 1.3% of that $70 trillion. So the AAA Act basically uses a framework to argue for the proportionate allocation of that capital, which primarily comes from pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, insurance companies, and to allocate it proportionately so that it is representative of the American population.
Right.
So if women are 50% of the American population, to my mind, there's no reason why women shouldn't be the gatekeepers to 50% of that $70 trillion.
Awesome.
Because, you know, so that's what it does in a nutshell.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And of course, you know, we've been working on this for a few weeks now, and it's something that really is very exciting for me to work on. Joe and Oksana, you obviously realize that the disparities that that is going on, and you have taken Asai and I under the Sputnik wings for the last few months, we've been learning how we can grow CribMD into a unicorn. And for those in the audience that don't know what a unicorn is, it's $1 billion company. You know, I have always been myself quite ambitious. And as a matter of fact, I was told many times when I was growing up that I was too ambitious. And I'm sure, Oksana, you probably have heard that too, as a woman that, you know, wants to do good work. But never in a million years would I dream that I would be running $1 billion company, let alone owning one. tell the audience a little bit about Sputnik and how our project at CribMD shortlisted among the hundreds of applicants for your winter 21 cohort.
Lorna, just to correct, because you were shortlisted from the list of more than 700 companies. So don't sell yourself short in this situation.
Okay.
And I think ultimately it's really interesting. So what at Sputnik, we are trying to find the future unicorns. We are trying to invest into companies that will shape the next 10, 15 years of American venture capital. Very lofty ambition. We are committed to not putting the blinders and looking for excellence everywhere. And in a way, like if you look at our cohort, and like we have in this cohort, I think majority of the founders are, in fact, do not look like me or Joe. But the reason you are there is not because we were looking for diversity. We welcome it with open arms, but we're truly looking for excellence, guys. And I think like one thing people forget for the venture capitalists such as ourselves is while in our private lives we're going to be noble and we're going to go for support of all of the social causes, our job and our day job is to actually find the best investment for our the best return on investment for our investors. The trick is because we are looking into every founder, and we unequivocally believe that the next talent could come from anywhere. They could be growing up in Africa or Alabama. They could play sports or they could play music. They could be white, black. They could speak with an accent. Like none of this matters. What matters is, do you have what it takes, and could you be a good team player and coachable so that you could actually move ahead and become that unicorn?
Yeah.
You got into Sputnik because you were on merit one of the finest companies we've seen in a very long time. And that thesis has proven itself out as we've watched your company grow. You earned your seat like everyone else that we take.
Yeah. And so I want to really emphasize, because I think one of the really most important things, because I've heard this and nothing makes my blood boil more than the statement that when you go for diversity, you sacrifice returns. That is an absolute nuisance bullshit. Like, I don't know, like whether we're allowed to swear on your podcast, but I think those are the words that the words I would use, because I think if you truly go for diversity and you apply systematic way to get rid of bias in your assessment process, you're going to come with a cohort that's going to look a lot more like the cross section of America. If nothing, like you actually could look like, for instance, from memory, I think 20% of the founders funded by Sputnik are African American. That's compared to 13% of African Americans in the census population.
Wow.
And we went for the best.
Well,
best just happened to look diverse.
Well, thank you. And I really feel good about what we have. And I know that we have something amazing. We are certainly proud to be a part of Sputnik. And I have been learning an incredible amount. I'm a small business owner, and I pretty much funded my business through all my business that I've done. I didn't seek funding. I just start small, and I'll expand. And I think you guys are doing a great job. I feel like I'm at an Ivy League university with getting hands-on practical, experience. So I think it's amazing. And I love both of you guys. Joe is the diplomat I was telling him before, and Oksana, just tell it like it is. And so we just love it, and we love you guys and love working with you. So let me go to my co-founder, Asai. As a millennial, of course, among us, you and I, of course, we know what the stat is. We are less than 1% of the Black of Black folks that get startup funding. So, Asai, what can we do so that we can influence the flow of capital to match our diversity?
Well, first, I think as a country, the capital allocators, the pension funds, and the sovereign wealth funds need to mandate or needs to put, as part of what gets tracked, that there be diversity in the portfolio companies that that they're giving money. Like so because what you grow, you grow what you track, and what you don't track do not grow. And also, if founders of color, consistently outperform their white peers, I think that will also help a lot. Like at CribMD, for instance, we have just been doing growth nonstop, just talking to people every day, and doing a lot of work. So I think if we work harder, if we perform better, and if the capital allocators make it a point to track diversity, I think we can change some of that stats.
And I think we are pretty diverse even within ourselves, and maybe one day we'll be big enough to have that multi-billion-dollar company so that we too can be funding other people that look like us that others will not look at. Byron, I think it comes back to you here. Where do you think the responsibility lies? And I think Asai touched on it a little bit. So where do you think the responsibility lies in a more equitable distribution of the fund? And I think that's what AAA is about.
Sure, I think it's a very important question. I think we live in a democracy, and within a democracy, you can have views, right? You can have beliefs as a member of a demos. You could believe that cows fly at night upside down. You have a right to believe that, right? You could believe that there is a connection between the rate at which you produce vitamin D and your moral decisions, that there is a connection. You have a right to believe these things, these irrational beliefs. However, when it comes to acting on those beliefs, when you're particularly in a position of power, then the government has to put a Chinese wall between your beliefs and you acting on those beliefs to the detriment of other people, particularly when those beliefs encroach upon the rights of other people. So if the way to think about it is to say that, some people might argue that we should educate these asset allocators about the returns from women or the returns from minorities and stuff like that. I'm not sure that that's the way to go, because in other frameworks, like if you wanted to get on a plane, we don't educate people that they shouldn't harm people on planes. We just make sure that they don't have an option to harm people. And I think it's the same thing here. We want to make sure that these asset allocators don't have an option to harm people, that their biases don't harm people. And the only way to do that is to make sure that we have viable laws that have an enforcement component and something that is measurable. And I think that, so to answer your question, the responsibility lies at the feet of Congress to pass laws that are viable, that are enforceable, and that are measurable, essentially. And this is what the AAA Act tries to do. It uses a framework whereby you could measure whether there is a correlation between asset allocation and race or not, or whether there's a correlation between asset allocation and gender or not. And when does that begin and when does that end?
Okay, there we go. I'm all for that. And I don't know if we need any more laws. I think there are probably enough laws on the book, if you ask me. And I think we just need to probably look at them again and probably maybe enforce them or have a closer look at them. Joe, as a venture capitalist, and of course, we're going to beat up on you as the white male in our group right now. What are you doing?
I am a greedy capitalist, and so I love people of color and I love women, because institutional racism means I can invest in them. So if you want to be a stupid white dude and you don't like making a lot of money, great, continue with your institutional racist stupid policies, because that's more for me. And that probably sounds self-serving, but I think in capitalism, people got to figure this out, because women and people of color generate better returns. It's a fact. It's been well documented by the University of Chicago, by Harvard Business School, the Kaufman Foundation. Like,
Yes.
this is just the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we at our fund, we believe that people have infinite potential. We truly, truly look at these companies and say, hey, which ones are the best? And when we do, we disproportionately fund women and people of color over any other fund, not because we're trying to look for them. It's just that no one else is investing in them, and they're not getting the attention they deserve. And from a social welfare perspective, I think that experience removes blinders, and people will be blind until they have a bad experience. I think a lot of fund managers are going to deliver bad returns, and their limited partner investors are going to tell them, we're lowering our allocation to your fund because you suck. And funds like Sputnik, by the way, at net of fees, okay, net of fees and expenses, our first fund on an annualized basis is returning 88.5% annually. I don't know too many other people in the country that are doing, almost 100% returns every year, right? And yeah, we'll do that until people notice that the 25% venture capital returns funds kind of suck because they're biased.
But they're biased, and they're getting these money. But we know that already. The science have said that. The stats have said that, and they're still continue to do that. So somebody who is in control keep giving it to the old white male club and not giving it to the woman. Oksana, to you, how does it feel to be one of the few women in venture capital? Because I know a lot of time you're the only one in the room. How do you feel about that?
Lorna, I grew up basically being as a woman physicist. This also is the field where you're one of the few women in the room, and I think that almost comes natural. I sometimes don't notice that, and the standard I decide for myself is I will not change all of the world, but there are terrific mentors that I could find for myself that will support me for who I am. And so my weapon, Lorna, was to choose to be excellent, to choose to be excellent, to choose to align myself with phenomenal partners that will support and promote me in my career and the agenda that is right, and stand up to people who actually should not be in the position of power. I don't know that is universally the right solution, but my solution was, if you choose to be excellent, and then by being excellent you open pathway to other people that don't look like the stereotype, I think that is one person at a time creates change. I very much respect what Byron is doing, because my personal belief is the solution will come from the combination of legislative pressure in some ways, as well as the right steps by the right people, ultimately in investment, because our fiduciary duty is to the people that have given us their money. And listening to the people, what do they want? And when those people are going to be saying, I want returns and diversity, and you don't get to pick and you don't get to hide, and we're going to measure that, I think good things will come.
I think it sounds like you read the asset allocation brief that Byron and I, or actually Byron initiated, and I'm trying to support and take it to Congress.
And I think Byron just said, like, what you measure, you could manage. At Sputnik, for instance, we always thought that we are very welcoming to diversity. And about a year ago, with a lot of the racial injustice and happening, like it had always been happening, but I think it was just splashing in our faces, and you had to be completely blind and deaf, and I don't know what to ignore it. We thought, okay, like we thought we're always diverse, let's measure it. And so we did, and we went and we calculated what is the percentage of by US Census diversity categories. What is our founders versus the national average? We were delighted that we were within the national average on, let's say, African American founders. What we discovered is we actually were really short on Hispanic founders. And being in the middle of Texas, Austin, Texas, that was bizarre. When we looked, why is it? We realized, well, when we go and talk to companies and startup founders, we generally go to Austin, Dallas, and Houston, and we don't cover Laredo, Brownsville, and Amarillo, and El Paso. So if you don't go and talk to those founders and they don't know you exist and you don't know that the funds are available to them, likely fewer of them will apply, so you will not get access to that terrific pool of talent. And so
Exactly.
as and to me, at Sputnik, we will be completely blind. Oh, this is commitment Joe and I have to ourselves. We're gonna only invest in the best. We're gonna be completely blind in who we pick. We're gonna try to pick the best players. However, in the pool of people we're gonna look from, we're gonna do our darnest to be seen by female founders, by African American founders, by Latina founders, by LGBTQ founders, as someone who will always gives them a chance.
Well, thank you for that. And like I said, I know we have something great. And Asai, I'll come back to you. And you, I think it was Joe that said it earlier about, you know, how many studies after studies show that companies and fund managers with diverse team of women and people of color unequivocally outperform the standard white male homogeneous company. So Asai, why do you think that companies are not taking advantage of this pool of talent? Asai?
Well, I think some folks have like inbuilt bias, like what Osana and Joe was saying, like institutional, racism. Folks want to hire people that are like them. Folks want to give money to people that are like them. So it's not necessarily about maximizing their performance. It's just, maintaining the status quo, right? So maybe if, and some folks erroneously think that if you lift the colored folks up, or the other guy up, that you yourself will not get anything. But it's not a zero-sum game. There is, wealth is created. You don't just have to, struggle for the same old pie. You can actually create wealth. So I think for the most part, they erroneously believe it's a zero-sum game. And if white folks have it and black folks don't have it, that is better for them.
Yeah, that's we're running out of time. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I probably let me see, Oksana, I wanted to just give you an opportunity to explain something that we talked about in one of the sessions. You talked about how maybe people of color and women may not apply sometimes to some of these programs to get the funding because they think they're not going to get it in the first place. And we also talk about product matching. For one few seconds, just give me 2 seconds.
No, that's an excellent question, Lorna, and thank you for bringing it up, because certainly we do not live in a just and perfect world yet, and we could really be fuming about the past. I think it's a lot more productive to figure out what can we do for the future. And the first step in the founders eliminating diversity is when we read these headlines, and I'm reading that only 1% of the funding goes to the founders of color, the very worst thing I could do is choose to not to apply. The very worst thing I could do is just choose, well, like, I don't even try. Lorna, like as a former Olympic athlete, you never win a competition you don't show up for. That just doesn't happen. And so to me, there is one message for the founders of color, for the female founders, for people who do not look like your standard 50-mile of the Sand Hill Road, Stanford MBA, and nothing wrong with them. They're good people. But if you don't look like that and you choose not to apply, you're actually giving ground, not just for yourself, but for people who will come after you.
Well, thank you for that. And go ahead, Joe. You got it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there is something that the people listening to this can do, and they can do right now to help us change this. When Byron talks about these funds and how money gets allocated, the people listening, you can change this. If you are in a public pension, or if you receive a pension, or you have a loved one in a pension, write your pension fund manager and look at their diversity scorecard. See if they are giving money to fund managers that are women and people of color. Fund managers who are women and people of color tend to fund other women and people of color more, and better yet, they get better returns. Write your congressman, write your elected officials, tell them that if these public fund administrators, like, who wants to be writing checks to underfunded pension funds, right? No one. This is a priority for our nation. This is a financial thing that impacts all of us. And when we look into this and we demand this, we demand that we fund managers that are women and people of color, and these public pension funds are required by law to do it. Why? Because it makes more money. then we're going to stop getting these underfunded pensions. We're going to stop seeing this problem, because the money does start at the top with these big pools, and we can influence these outcomes if we will write to the trustees, write to the fund managers, and demand a better return through diversity right now.
Wow.
That is a brilliant suggestion.
That is amazing. It's like, Joe, you guys just amaze me. You're just so keen and understanding of all these financial aspects. Byron, you couldn't ask for some better partners. I mean, they just get it. You just get it.
Yes.
And that's what we're talking about. The laws are on the book, and we're working on legislation right now. And I'm talking to some of the Congress people, and we're going to continue to work on it, because I'm sure it will send a lot of traction. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to try to do an op-ed on it sometime this week, so that they can have something to look at. But we're definitely going to follow on that. It's a great idea. From capital flows power. According to the Catholic University of America, if the average Black family wealth continues to grow at the same pace it has over the past 3 decades, it would take Black families 228 years to amass the same amount of wealth white families have today. That sounds to me like economic apartheid. And, Senator Warren, I think when she was running as a presidential candidate, she mentioned about putting aside $7 billion in grant fund for Black, Latinas, and Native American entrepreneurs, startup business. At the same rate at white entrepreneur, she believes that we would be closer to some sort of a semblance of closing the gap in the next 10 years. Supporting over 100,000 new businesses and 1.1 million new jobs. I still believe that's not enough. That's like pittance in the pool, considering the economics of the United States, the economy of the United States. So, what do you think can be I guess Joe actually answered the question about the disparities, and is it a zero-sum game, or are there multiplier effect that accompany closing the wealth and wage gap? And I think that was answered by Asai and Joe. So I'm gonna just say thank you all for coming this evening. I could go on and on. Thank you for joining Live with Lorna. It's one of my favorite topics, how we can, just go to the limit. And I love Oksana talking about excellence, because that's what we strive for. Everything we do. And that's one of the things I love about my partner, Asai. We believe in excellence, and everything is done by number. We do research, we study it, and we learn our craft before we go out there. And hopefully that is what Oksana and Joe saw in us at Sputnik.
Absolutely.
And we are going to take it to the next level. So on this note, to the gentlemen on the panel, I'm going to bid you fond farewell. And I'm going to ask Oksana to stay with me for our Girl Tribe segment, as we continue to have a conversation with our Girl Tribe about financial literacy and women. So, gentlemen.
Great to meet you, Byron.
Likewise, great to meet you too.
We'll now go to her Girl Tribe segment. Oksana, thank you for staying with the Girl Tribes. This is where we introduce influential women like yourself as role models to our girls. Today, our young lady is going to be Ariel A. Winfield, a STEM graduate with a Wall Street background in private wealth management marketing. Graduate of the University of Pennsylvania and MIT, Ariel left Wall Street to pursue her entrepreneurial dream and considers herself a millennial change maker, an athlete, mental health advocate, world traveler, and fashionista. Welcome, Ariel.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So great to have you. And of course,
great to have you. Welcome and congratulations on all of these massive accomplishments.
Absolutely. Oksana, as I was telling before, Ariel fits the mold of the perfect candidate to mentor for success.
Absolutely.
STEM and Ivy League.
And we share the same alma mater, so I got my PhD at
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's
like
a nice universal coincidence right here.
Yeah. Absolutely. She's an athlete with great, like I said, and of course I'm biased towards that as an athlete myself.
Me too.
And I said she's young, gifted, and Black woman. And her dad is the Baseball Hall of Famer, Dave Winfield. And her mom, Tanya Winfield is my friend. So it's a lot of bias here. So Ariel, go ahead and ask a couple questions of Oksana.
Yeah, sure. I do have a couple questions. My first one is financial literacy and economic opportunity in the Black community, especially, is really important to me. And as a venture capitalist, what are your thoughts on helping to increase the financial IQ of the Black community, as well as helping to close the wealth gap in America?
Okay, so let me maybe take it in turn, because I think those are two different questions, and maybe if you're okay. To me, education is one of the biggest fundamental steps, and equal access to education from kindergarten to high school to college is like the most fundamental equalizer. My husband and I, we came to this country, we literally had $100 to our name. So like there were no trust funds of any kind. That was literally it. We made both of us have PhDs in physics from Ivy League institutions because the education that we were afforded early on had allowed us to jumpstart, and a lot of hard work and a lot of good luck. But really, if you think about no network, highly accented English, difficulty to write, difficulty to speak, but that education allowed us to propel us forward. I think to me, one of the biggest challenges in Black community right now in really ensuring the wage equality 5-10 years from now is there is not enough of Black students that are going into STEM. So even if you look at the college graduates, dramatically fewer African American students are picking STEM specialties that end up paying the most. If you are like world-class hacker, you will earn a six-figure salary pretty much no matter where you live, what you wear to work, how you look, because those skills are the prime demand. And I think to me, it starts early with how do we afford computer science education? How we do educate African-American moms, their force of nature? How we instilled in them that just going to college is not good enough. Are you learning your math? Are you learning to code? Basically putting that superpower to work and guiding slightly, because education has a big focus in African-American community, but we are not picking enough, not enough of us is insisting that just parity for what was yesterday is not enough. You have to leapfrog whoever you're competing with, and you're going to leapfrog that by really being prepared for the professions of the future. So to me, I don't know whether this is the solution, but this is a practical solution that I subscribe and advocate and actually do a lot of steps in my private life to make sure that happens.
Awesome. Go ahead, one more, and we're going to wrap it up.
Financial literacy is slightly different thing, and I think it just has to be taught, has to be educated. You could make it fun. Like for instance, one of the Sputnik companies, Signum City, made a game out of how to play stock market that is free for kids. So like anyone, so if you're gonna get, it's like, what do kids want to do? They want to play on their computer, or like on their phone. Right. What if you make them learn how to invest? And then you save their portfolio. So then when they are going to college, their record is better than that of some fund manager because they've cared and they really understood what will be the future. Well, they're going to get really good jobs and they're going to create good future for their family. So the basic financial literacy things have to be taught, and the community leaders have to take initiative at this. So maybe this is schools, maybe this is churches, maybe this is the influencers like yourself, Lorna.
Maybe we can help her to grow into a billionaire where she will be able to do some of these herself. Go ahead, Ariel, your next question.
Sure, yeah, my next question is, as a young Black female entrepreneur in the midst of starting my own tech company and raising capital for it, what advice do you have for someone like me to successfully raise their first round?
First of all, congratulations, because people who start their own company and endeavor on raising their first round, they are some of the bravest, most determined individuals out there. And I'm going to share with you 3 things. First of all, it's going to be really, really hard. And it's going to be hard for everyone who enters that road. People that are going to like look for money, you're going to hear a lot more no's than you're going to hear yeses. And so my first advice is when you hear no's, try to hear what was their constructive criticism. Do not ascribe that to what you look like, where you come from, your skin color, none of those, because even if the person on the other side of it is biased, that will not help you get better. And as a result, that will not help you win. There is already enough people that are actively supporting African American entrepreneurs, and I could connect you with them offline. The road is difficult for everyone, and where I've seen women and minorities in particular make an error is when they hear their first no and their second no and their third no and their 10th no. The moment you ascribe it, there is nothing I could do about being a Ukrainian woman with blonde hair. Well, maybe I could dye my hair, right? So if when I hear a no, I'm thinking this because I'm Ukrainian and speak with an accent, that just shuts the door for me, because there is nothing I could do about that. That's not something I could change or grow out of that. And so to me, that's the first thing. And there are going to be some assholes that, sorry, like, again, language, and you do not want to associate with them. If someone reveals themselves as a racist, sexist, chauvinist pig, step away, because they're people that are good, and you do not want to be affiliated with those people. Those people will not, even though tactically that might have been convenient to get that check, trust me, in the long term, you don't want that. Okay,
Right.
so that's like step number one. Step number two, remember, it's about growth. There is like one secret handshake in the startups, and it's called growth. And if you grow at 8 to 10% week over week, investors will find you. It will not be the other way around. It is very difficult, and the STEM major, like, do me a favor on the spreadsheet, map out, if you start with selling 100 widgets on January 1st, and you grow 10% week over weeks, just to really appreciate what level of growth we are talking about. It's schizophrenic, mad race. Really, that's what it is. It's going to feel very unsafe. But if you figure out the way that your product delivers that growth, people will find you. And my third advice is go network, go become friends with people in this industry, because one of the big we live in somewhat different worlds that they don't sometimes intermix, and not because they don't want to, it just happen to be this way. Look at the city of Chicago that was segregated for Ukrainians to live in this neighborhood, for Poles to live in this neighborhood, for Indian community to be here. Unless we make deliberate efforts to become friends and really network and get to know people who are not like us, I think we're going to be forever limited to the network that we know. And if there are no funding there, then tough luck, because you will not find, like, you have to find your way to those investors. And the good guys and gals, they will be super open to that. Like, there is, like, you are gritty Division I athlete who is an Ivy League STEM person, people would want to meet you. So own it and go make some friends.
Wow.
So don't take no for an answer. Go be excellent through growth, and go meet friends that don't look like you, because you will be surprised with how many people will be willing to help you. Negativity makes for terrific headlines, but I personally believe there are much more people that will be your big promoters if you just let them. So let them.
Wow. That's why I love you, Oksana. I think you are so amazing. And I hope that Ariel really heard all the wonderful things you've said. I just love my Girl Tribe segment. I am my mother's daughter, and I believe in finding solutions to problems. And our Girl Tribe segment does just that.
The future is female. We just need to own it. And, you don't need to be brass. You don't need to be loud. You just need to be excellent. So go be excellent. You have everything for it.
Thank you so much.
This just help our women and girls, share knowledge, life experience, and helping them to grow. And that's what we're here for, to help you to grow and to become your best self. So Ariel, thank you for, being willing to come on the show and share your vulnerability with us. And Oksana, you're always so awesome. What can I say?
Ariel, you're awesome. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And if you need a pep talk, I put my email into the chat room.
I'll definitely reach out to you. Thank you so much.
Definitely.
Thank you, Lorna, for bringing us together.
And I will follow up. We will follow up and with this conversation and see where the spark, where the fire spark started and where we're going to take it. Okay. So thank you, ladies. Be well.
Bye.
And be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
And speaking of fire, Our Lean In with Lorna segment has our fiery diversity expert, Jane Elliott. Consider the forerunner of diversity training, with the Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes exercise being the basis of her work. Jane Elliott has trained corporate giants across the globe with her one-size-fits-all strict tone and approach to anti-racist education. She has no tolerance for talk of color blindness or coding of so-called white fragility. Jane only wants people to understand how it feels to be mistreated based on meaningless standards. Jane, welcome. Welcome to Live with Lorna. This is the Lean In segment, and we're going to be talking about what's going on in our country today. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. So let's see, where should we start? Let's start with George Floyd murder and Derek Chauvин's trial. What is its impact on Black community, and will the outcome change the policing of Black and brown people? Jane, what do you think?
The only way you're going to change the outcome of Black and brown people is to re-educate the citizenry of the United States of America. We've got to stop talking about white and Black, because people do not come in those two colors. People come in shades of brown because we all come from the same place, a country in Africa, and we all originated there from 300,000 to 500,000 years ago. However, the importance of what happened on January 6th at the Capitol building and what happened with George Floyd is now white people, so-called white people, can no longer deny that there's racism in this country and that we are seeing people of color murdered on a daily basis for the last 2 weeks because of not the color of their skin. The color of their skin is natural. That's how the first modern human beings looked. The problem is not skin color. The problem is the ignorance about skin color. And until we start teaching that we all came from a country in Africa and are the descendants of those ancestors who were very dark colored because their skin had to produce a lot of melanin in order to protect themselves from the damaging rays of the sun. Until we get over the idea that those are a different race, we'll be in this same situation. Teachers believe this nonsense. Educators don't believe it, but teachers believe this nonsense and they teach it. We teach that Columbus discovered America because we don't want to admit, or perhaps a whole lot of us don't know, that people from Africa came to this continent, discovered this continent between 20,000 and 10,000 years before Columbus was ever a gleam in his great-great-great-great-great-grandfather's eye. It's time for us to start teaching the truth instead of the myth. Now, the difference between a myth and a lie is we have a myth about where we all came from. A myth is something that you make up to explain something you don't understand in nature. A lie is something you make up to make it all right for you to do absolutely unacceptable things. And the idea of separating people into several different races only started in about the late 1400s and early 1500s, when the people, Torquemada and company, were trying to turn everybody Catholic, and anybody who wasn't Catholic, they were killing them. It wasn't until they realized that they'd killed a bunch of Christians that they stopped doing that. At that point, they said, we can't tell what your religion is by looking at you. We're going to have to find another way to decide who deserves to die. And they set on skin color as the way to determine who deserved to die. Light skinned people were called white, dark skinned people were called black. Now think about this. White and black are polar opposites. If you look in the dictionary, white is the color of goodness and purity. Black is the color of savagery and evil. You cannot call people white and black and expect them ever to join together as a United States of America. It's time to give up those two words, white and black. If you don't have enough iron in your blood to keep you healthy, you're called anemic. If you don't have enough melanin in your skin to protect you from the rays of the sun, you must be melanemic. And if you have more melanin in your skin, you must be melanaceous. And if you have a lot of melanin in your skin, you're melanotic. Now you're sitting there grinning like, oh, what a novel idea. It's in the damn dictionary. Wow. Melanotic is in the dictionary. You need to realize this. And the fact that the word race, as it relates to a group of people, a special group of people, came out of France in 1580. That's how long this ridiculous nonsense has been around. Since 1580. It's time to get over it. If you continue to use the vocabulary of the 14th and 15th century, you can turn off this camera. because obviously you are going to communicate the way they did in the 14th and 15th century. I'll go out and watch for some smoke signals coming up on the horizon so that I'll know what you want to say to me. Only I won't walk out, I'll walk out of this house, but I won't be able to get back in because I can't come in here where there's no electricity. I'll have to live outside. That's fine in California. It's not worth a damn in Northeast Iowa in the wintertime. People need to get over the idea that it's all right to use the language of the 14th and 15th century, but expect to have all the wonderful things we've gotten, many of which we got from people of color over the last 500 years. Get over it.
Wow.
It's time to get over this racism. This isn't racism. This is ignorance based on, this is disgusting behavior based on ignorance about skin color and its origin. Skin
Wow.
color is not a determinant or an indicator of intelligence or worth as a human being. It is your body's natural reaction to the natural environment. It has nothing to do with being God's chosen children. I'm sick of talking about this. We shouldn't have to be talking about this. We should have given it up about 500 years ago.
Jane, you are always a delight. And with all the crazy around this country, I'll have to have you back because you will need to keep us straight. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Be well and stay safe.
Okay, you're welcome.
That's Jane, everyone. Isn't she a straight shooter? Love her. I need to get her back on the show so she can help me with this campaign so that we all can get vaccinated, get our shot. I mean, vaccination shot. Join me in the Armed and Vaccinated campaign. Stop the spread, prevent the mutation, keep us all safe, and in the process, win a trip to Jamaica. People of color are most affected by COVID-19, yet 67% of whites are vaccinated compared to only 8.4% of blacks. Much of this vaccine hesitancy in the Black community is understood and is valid. It's rooted in history and mistrust in government. I get it. I am a nurse midwife and a nurse practitioner, and I had my own skepticism. But the benefits outweigh the risks. I got my shot, and I want you to get your shot. I want to ensure our community survives this pandemic. To this end, I'm calling on all the leaders and influencers in our community of color to join me for the LMJ Global 100K Armed and Vaccinated campaign. This campaign will encourage and celebrate people of color to get vaccinated. Our goal is to have 100,000 individuals get their shot. That's not a lot, but let's start here. I call on all my friends, let's make some noise on social media and join me by encouraging your social media network of family and friends to get their shot. Visit www.armedandvaccinated.com. Click the I Got My Shot button, download the Armed and Vaccinated sticker, and post it on your social media network. Use the hashtag #GetYourShot, hashtag I Got My Shot, hashtag Armed and Vaccinated. Let's have some fun. Everyone that joined the campaign at www.armedandvaccinated.com entered in a chance to win a trip for two to Jamaica. Thank you for doing your part in saving our community by supporting the LMJ Global 100K Armed and Vaccinated campaign. Thank you.